Tell me about your involvement with the YWCA.
I've been very motivated in my career and in my life on women's issues, and the YWCA to me was one group that I saw was clearly moving some of those issues forward. So I was a donor and a volunteer, and I was nominated for one of their Women of Distinction awards, which was really nice.
Lovely. And you're obviously the CEO of the YMCA. Can you tell me a little bit about your work with them and why it's important to you?
I love the work that I do. YMCA BC is an organization that helps champion people's outcomes in a broad basis. So, no matter what gender, what income level, what orientation, what cultural background, we look to include everybody, be very welcoming, have a sense of belonging, and then empower people to have better outcomes for themselves, which is generally around the area of health.
Ever since I was little, you have taught me about women's equity and equality. When did this issue become important to you?
I didn't realize that there was really any discrimination against women when I was young. I started to experience that when I started working. So that's in the early 90s. And I was the only girl on this team that was in Toronto. It was a corporate organization. And I quickly realized that women were treated differently than men in a whole bunch of different ways. And I think I started to look into it and understand it a bit better and learning more about it. And that was back in the 90s. We're now in 2024. Women still make 84 cents on the dollar. So an equally capable woman will make 84 cents, whereas a man will make $1, which is not right. That gap grows if you are an Indigenous woman compared to an Indigenous man. That's 74 cents on the dollar. There's a whole bunch of things that just aren't right, and I'd like to help fix that.
What challenges have you faced being an upstander and a woman executive?
I think one of the things, I'm really motivated by trying to address things that I don't think are right or just or fair. I certainly experienced bias as a woman, which I told you about. I also experienced bias being a single mom, in that there's some things that are a little bit harder to accomplish when you're a single parent. But that motivated me, and having a young daughter also motivated me too. I wanted this world to be a little bit more fair for her. I think one of the things that I am so motivated every day is that the work that I do at the Y is all about helping lift people up. And that is really meaningful for me. And when I share some of the observations and the facts that we know about the inequities in society, I find that people are shocked and surprised, and then they get motivated. Sometimes a little bit of being frustrated and angry, if you target that in a particular way, can be really empowering. When I talk about health equity, I talk about how there's a whole bunch of unjust but fixable areas where people don't have the same health outcomes. Whether or not you come from a different income bracket, where you live affects that, your gender, your cultural background, your education, all of those things actually affect your quality of health and your health outcomes, even your longevity. And those are things that we can definitely fix. And the Y runs a lot of programs that helps narrow those gaps, which is really important to me.
What are some of the issues facing women that you're fighting against?
Some of the areas right now really are about some of the burdens that women face. I talked a little bit about health. I can give you some concrete examples because people don't understand a little bit of the inequities here. So one of the things about medicines, drugs, women have only been included in those trials for new drugs for the past 20 years. So that means that for the 100 years before that, women weren't even included in the trial. So essentially, most of the medicine that's out there actually has been set up and designed for a male body. And we know that men and women we don't process drugs in the same way. Women are not smaller men. So 75% of the drug effects that are experienced by people in community are women because the drugs weren't designed for us in the first place. Even now that women are included in drug trials, they don't have to understand the difference as to how women process the drug versus the man. So, and even we saw that with the vaccines with the pandemic. A lot of women had their menstrual cycles and their fertility cycles messed with because of the vaccine. It was temporary, but they didn't even need to know that before they rolled this out over millions of people. Those things to me aren't right, and we can help fix those things by increasing awareness for people that medical science has been based on men and bringing more of women's issues to the forefront so people know that actually there's inequities and that women experience these things differently.
So that kind of ties in what can more people do. But is there any other examples about what more people can do to be an upstander for women's health and women's equality?
Well, I think to some extent being aware is the first step. So, and I would always start with yourselves. So, being aware of what biases you might have, because that'll affect those people around you, and trying to become aware of those things you might not be aware of today. And then learning about what are some of the biases that other people suffer from. And I use the word suffer because people do. There's things that are unjust and unfair because of the classification of where they come from or how they identify themselves. And then I would say if you either experience it yourself or you see someone else who's being held back or discriminated against because of one of those different gender, equity, cultural, age, doesn't matter. Whatever bias it might be, is to find your way to empower them to champion their own outcomes. So, not that you go in and fix the problems for them, that's not what success is all about, but helping them feel supported so that they can fix those problems themselves.
Awesome. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.